One of my favorite teachings comes from Francis Asbury's Causes and Cures of Heart and Church Division. There'd been a bunch of turmoil in our church when it was being established during and after the Revolutionary War, and so Francis gathered together these teachings on conflict and put them together in a little book and sprinkled in some of his own commentary. Cokesbury has published an abridged version of this. It's a small blue book, which I highly recommend as a resource for our folks. But my favorite teaching actually isn't in the abridged version. You have to go to the big old tome and down in the archive to find it. And this is how it goes. You are generous with yourselves and strict with others, when you should be strict with yourself and generous with others. Now, I think you can boil a lot of Christianity, and especially Methodism, down to that adage. Be strict with yourself so that you can be generous with others. After all, didn't someone somewhere once say, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Sometimes, most times, following Jesus means letting go of the things we think we deserve in order to embrace things which simultaneously appear to be lesser, but in the kingdom terms turn out to be far more. Following Jesus usually means letting go of the things we think we deserve in order to embrace the things that God actually has for us. Now, I love that title of that book, Causes and Cures of Heart and Church Division, because it emphasizes that it's the same things that cause conflict in us individually that also create conflict within our community, that divide us up. And the same things that cause the conflict in ourselves and in our families and our communities, well, it's the same cures for all of that too. And isn't that the central theme of today's passage from James? Those conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? You want something and you do not have it, so you commit murder. And you covet something and cannot obtain it, so you engage in disputes and conflicts. And oh boy, do those sins quickly snowball until it's all Hatfields and McCoys, one of active aggression leading to a cascade of violence. This is the domain of resentment. Resentment arises when we take up a position of spiritual grievance. It's an existential orientation in which we convince ourselves that for one reason or another, we deserve more and better than we have. And typically, this results in falsely identifying some other person who is responsible. We make them responsible for our situation, even though they probably aren't. Our resentment convinces us that we have gotten the short end of the stick, and that other person who got the job we wanted, or got the promotion, or has the car that we had our eye on, or who's in a happy relationship, oh, that's the worst. They got some accolade. You fill in the blank. Somehow, resentment convinces us that that person or that group of people, let's leave room for racism, sexism, and xenophobia, this is a thing, but resentment convinces us that it's that person or that group of people who have taken it from us. They got what I deserved. That's resentment. If not for them, that's resentment. Even on my worst day, when I feel wronged by other people, and that happens, even on my worst day, it remains an unavoidable, intractable fact that I am alive in an otherwise dead universe, a citizen of the wealthiest superpower on earth, in a time of amazing technological advancement, with a vocation that fills me with passion, and a dog that loves me, in Westchester County, New York. I think I'm gonna be okay. I think we're gonna be okay. And of course, every day there are things that happen that are objectively wrong or that subjectively I just personally don't like. But Pastor, there was that person who cut me off on the way to church this morning. Isn't it amazing that we have cars? Isn't it remarkable that after thousands and thousands of years of human experience, we get to live in the amazing luxury of being able to hop in a car at all? This is the work of keeping our eyes on the bigger picture. And it helps us to maintain a proper understanding of how extraordinarily lucky and blessed we are, even when things are hard. And that is the domain of gratitude. Gratitude doesn't mean that nothing bad happens to us. And it doesn't mean that we don't deserve justice when we are genuinely wrong. There is absolutely room for justice. Gratitude does mean, however, that we can always choose to be positively oriented toward life, towards the blessings that God has given us every day. Gratitude builds where resentment tears down. Gratitude gives where resentment takes away. And this is why, in the Methodist order of operations, it's joy, gratitude, generosity, service. In experiencing salvation at the hands of a loving God and accepting divine grace as a way of life, we choose gratitude over resentment, giving thanks to God in all circumstances. That's John Wesley's words. Giving thanks in all circumstances, every circumstance. Gratitude. And in rejecting resentment, our joy and gratitude naturally lead us to be more holy and generous with others, becoming builders of the kingdom, regardless of the arrows and slings that get fired our way. And all of that finds its completion in service. Service to God and service to others for the coming kingdom. As our gospel passage records, then Jesus and the disciples came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they were silent, for on the way they had argued with one another as to who was the greatest. And so Jesus sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be the last of all, and servant of all." Servant of all. If you want to be great, be grateful and serve. To follow Christ is to deny ourselves, take up our own crosses, and put our lives on the line for the flourishing of others. And yet sin is always lurking at the door, waiting to pounce and convince us that we're the ones who deserve to be first. We're the ones who deserve to be served. And that resentment is one of the greatest tools of the enemy. But James offers us the only consistent remedy. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly. You're praying for the wrong stuff. Because you want to spend what you get on your own pleasures. Submit yourselves instead to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Pray for the right things, not for yourself. Don't ask for things for yourself, but for the flourishing of others. Reject the devil, draw near to God, and you will find God there. If you want to be great, be grateful. So let us become and be known as people of joy, gratitude, generosity, and service. Those followers of Christ who do not wallow in resentment and entitlement, but continuously give ourselves for the flourishing of other people. Let us not be divided by our jealousy and our petty grievances, but be overwhelmed by the grace of God, such that it flows from our every word and deed. Let us not be generous with ourselves and strict with others. Let us be strict with ourselves so that we can be generous to all the world. Amen.